with all that said, this story is called Urban Myth. So if you have a cocktail, I have water right now. Here's a toast to the first story and me doing this project. I just also want to thank you for being here because I fucking appreciate it and I love the support. You have no idea. Yeah, you helped me get over my panic attacks, which I do. Yeah, take care of your mental health people. It helps. All right. And I'm trying to see how many people are here, but you know what? Fuck it. As the Bible says, when two or three gather, blah, 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 God. So we're just going to do this. All right. It's called Urban Myth. All right, here we go. One night, I picked up a lively group of young people from the Hollywood area. From their thick accents, I could tell that they were of Russian descent. From their smell and demeanor, I detected that all of them had overindulged in liquor, light liquor to be exact. I think in lieu of my own greatly reduced alcohol consumption since becoming a rideshare driver, my ability to detect liquor that I desperately would like to consume on a daily basis on other people had greatly increased. Vodka in particular is one liquor I can sniff from a yard away. Tequila is another. This particular night with these passengers, my stomach grumbled while reminiscing about the Saturday nights when I overindulged so much that I was as loud and as obnoxious as these people. A young woman sat up front with me, with at least one woman and two men in the back. They were all giddy, loud, and speaking in such prominent accents that I half expected one of them to talk about their recent plot to kill moose and squirrel. The woman who sat in the front seat was particularly animated, got moved over, was particularly animated and exhausting, touching me on the arm while she slurred out random pleasantries, demanding that I take my eyes off the road so I could see some amusing meme she saved on her cell phone, touching my steering wheel in an effort to make a turn she determined that I needed to make. Several times during the trip, I had to tell her to calm down, sit properly in her seat, and buckle her seat. My last request carried such strong, authoritative paternal effect that it even surprised me. She apologized profusely while her backseat cohorts snickered under their breaths. She eventually asked if she could plug her cell phone into my car so she could listen to her music. I obliged, but 3 minutes into a riotous Taylor Swift sing along, she touched my steering wheel again, and much like an annoyed father driving toddlers in a Viz Cruiser, I threatened to end the trip and turn this car around if she obstructed my driving one more time. While there were more obnoxious snickers, laughter, and off-key sing-alongs to current pop numbers, she did refrain from touching both my steering wheel and my body for the duration of the trip. At one point, however, she and the rest of the group jokingly requested that I make a sharp turn in order to wake their compatriot, who was sound asleep in the back seat. I did not indulge. I just reminded them that they were 5 minutes away from their destination. When we finally arrived, all the passengers seemed unfamiliar with the dark and desolate locale. They questioned each other and me if this darkened street was indeed their actual intended address. I read back to them the address on the app and pointed to a house that looked abandoned, which shared the same address. I told them that I would be more than happy to take them to another location if they wanted, but all agreed this was indeed the final destination. And on the off chance that if it wasn't, they would simply call another rideshare vehicle. It took them a few extra seconds to pile out of the car. Not obnoxiously long, but I remember ranting and wondering to myself, what are you guys doing back there? Alone in the car with the sirens rushing in and ringing in my ears, I was just overcome with an immense feeling of fatigue, more emotional than physical, but I'm sure the two connect. I have been patiently waiting for this whole Breeze rideshare driver of my life to be over and rationalized that each passenger that got into my car brought me closer to the ending and the eventual beautiful beginning for the next chapter of my life. That's the optimistic way of looking at it anyway. There have been moments like that night when it just felt like I was living up my fullest potential. Maybe being morbidly obese, in debt, single, and picking up random characters and dropping them off in random places for pennies on the dollar And keeping a cute little journal of the more outrageous trips was actually who I was meant to be. That there was nothing else I can offer the world and nothing else that the world can offer me. Maybe this was about golden and my life would ever get. And as I felt the pull, every Mack truck on the freeway taunting me to crash through it in an effort to take some control and end this chapter myself, I instead opted just to cut the night short and head back home to Hollywood, stop someplace to get some tea, and just regroup. I eventually hit the 101 freeway and was listening to RuPaul What's the Tea podcast with Michelle Visage. As usual, the conversations were lively and so funny that I injected myself into it as if the three of us were old friends, or maybe they were interviewing me for some achievement I had accomplished. I was making funny little puns and asides as we talked about serious issues surrounding communities of color and the LGBTQA plus community, and how ridiculous I felt it was to have an alphabet soup of letters to say a bunch of homos. I got so into the conversation that I actually turned down the podcast and started talking to myself out loud in my empty car. Oh, Rue, you're so funny. You're such an inspiration. You know, I've never contemplated ever doing drag until you reasoned the ego craves identity. Drag mocks identity. The ego hates drag. I think about it now. I don't know if I ever will, but I think about it. And Michelle, I love the Hamilton soundtrack too. You know, there were times I was driving around rideshare on those lonely, dusty Los Angeles streets by myself, wondering if I would even break through to be the better person, the star really that I was meant to be. I would get so down on myself when I would turn on the Hamilton soundtrack and feel so inspired. Even now that I'm a multi-millionaire writer, porn star, triathlete, comedian, I still enjoy those little ditties, make me smile. And as I was taking the Sunset Boulevard exit and explaining that despite things not working out between Michael B. Jordan and myself because of our busy schedules, that we're still friends, I heard a prominent cough. At first, I thought it was some mechanical anomaly within the car, or maybe I didn't turn the radio down low enough. Then I felt and heard a sudden shift in the air inside my car, that something was moving. I looked in my rearview mirror and realized that the Russians left something in my back seat, but I couldn't figure out what it was. When I actually got to Sunset Boulevard, I screamed like a banshee when I discovered exactly what those Russians left in my back seat. A fully grown sleeping Negro. I gently shook him to wake him up, and he leisurely flicked my hand away, slurring, "What? I'm trying to sleep," then passed out again. I was completely paralyzed with fear and unsure exactly what to do in this situation. They never mentioned anything close to this, any orientation I went through. I quickly rationalized that I would drop him off at the local police station, and if he woke up before then, I would try to ascertain who he was and where he needed to go. Unfortunately, he was out like a light the entire trip until I arrived at the police station. I parked my car directly in front of the building, opened all the windows, unlocked all the doors, and got out of the car. I walked to the open rear door behind the passenger seat, but as I was reaching for the handle, he woke up and got out of the car himself. He was a youngish guy, maybe in his 20s. I couldn't tell by the cut of his clothes if he was homeless and disenfranchised or a hipster and fashionable. The rips in his jeans and patterns on his shirt could have made either condition true. Feeling as if I was looking at a ghost, it took me a minute to finally croak out, "What are you doing in my car?" We stared at each other in complete silence, mirroring each other's bemused glances. I repeated with more authority and fear, "What are you doing in my car?" His eyes were wide as saucers, and he replied with the utmost confusion, where else would I be? Which somehow frightened me even more. I sprinted back to the driver's seat, terrified. And if it were not for the fact that I had a bum knee and this pesky morbid obesity, I would have jumped through the window Dukes of Hazzard style. Instead, I shakily opened the door and clumsily put the key into the ignition. Outside the open windows, I can hear him yelling, "What did I do? What did I do?" He repeated it as I sped off with my heart pounding a million miles a minute. What did I do? I finally got that tea I so desperately needed and tried to unpack exactly what had happened. I called three people that night, including my aunt Cindy. How you doing, Cindy? In Chicago, who was also a rideshare driver, just to get everyone's take on it. There were certain questions everyone asked. Question: was he with the Russians? Answer: I don't know. I didn't do a head count when they got in. I didn't do a head count left when they left, but he was black. Question: well, they have black Russians, right? Answer: I suppose so. He didn't speak with an accent that I could tell. It's not like he said, "Where else would I be? What did I do? I want to kill moose and squirrel." Question: so was he with them and they left him? Answer: I don't know. Question: did he sneak in when they got out? Answer: I don't know. Question: who was he? Answer: I don't know. One friend was just grateful that he didn't awaken while I was on the freeway talking to myself. While the initial white girl scream would have been hilarious, the sequential 25 car pileup would have not been as funny. I was more shocked that someone was actually in my car while I was talking to myself, and I kept trying to replay the conversation and wondering if I said anything dirty. I rationalized that I was talking to RuPaul and Michelle Visage, so I'm sure I didn't sexually proposition either of them. At least I don't think so. I was sure that I hadn't. There was a good chance that I didn't. I didn't. I swear. Pretty much everyone went with the predictable supernatural route, with the passenger either being God, an angel, or some ethereal force. None of which I want to consider with my lifelong eternal fear of all things paranormal and ghost related. I began to think about the idea of ghosts having formerly been just people. There have been a couple of times when I stepped off the elevator in my apartment building and the whole floor was completely quiet and empty, but it still just felt inhabited. Yes, there was electricity, the walls and carpet were relatively clean, but more than that, there was life flowing through that hallway, through the walls. It was the opposite of abandoned. It was full. Like a mad person, I used to turn the corner, close my eyes, and slowly walk down the hallway with my arms outstretched, my fingers lightly touching the walls, feeling the life in them. I thought to myself, we're all ghosts. We're all pre-ghosts. We're all just haunting each other's lives with our good and bad energies, hoping someone sees us, validates us, helps us on our path. The only difference between us and actual ghosts is essentially just sentience. I bet the goals are the same. You just don't have a physical body. Even that dude in the back of my car, ghost or pre-ghost, just trying to figure things out, haunting and scaring the shit out of me in the process. I have always told my ancestors that it's cool if they want to talk to me, but please, please, please don't show up as an apparition or spirit because it would result in a lifelong constant diarrhea and incurable night terrors. I think they all heard me and they all have done me that favor. I think at one point or another, I've spoken to all of them, and they were so kind to erase the memory from my conscious mind because they know that memories of me talking to a ghost would fuck up my entire understanding of life. I remember one Mother's Day having a very detailed dream of being in a room with mothers. I recognized a lot of them. My grandma was there. She was pissed at my mom for some reason, and my great grandmother was there. We sat and had tea and had a lovely long time talking. At one point, she said she had to go, and I apologized profusely, telling her I know I should talk to her more often, and she understood. I saw a woman that looked super familiar and realized that it was Wheezy from the Jeffersons. I told my great grandmother that I would come and see her more. And then I saw Sophia from the Golden Girls. And that's when I thought, hey, that's Sophia from the Golden Girls. Hey, I thought she passed away. Wait, hey, hey. Then I turned around, and as quickly as I realized everyone in that room had died, they had all simply dissolved into thin air. And I woke up hyperventilating and laughing my ass off. It was a close call, but I thank them at least for making it a little funny. I eventually settled on the logical principle of Occam Razor, in which The simpler solution is more likely to be correct than the more complex one. Those crazy drunk Russians probably just left their sleeping Negro friend in the backseat of my car, as opposed to all of my incredibly dark fears, disgruntlements, and frustrations manifesting themselves into a curiously dressed black millennial who quietly listened to my dreams, did not want to be disturbed, and had no idea where else he should be outside from being with me. In either case, after I calmed down, drove back to the police station. I was hoping to find them or maybe get some concrete evidence of the side, maybe some concrete evidence of the side of the ghost line in which he existed. I drove all around that station, even went to the nearest subway station, but I never found him. After a while, I just let the whole preoccupation go and rationalized that whomever or whatever he was, I had given him all the energy I could. I tried to let him go as safely as I could and prayed that he found his way home. To this day, driving rideshare or not, I constantly check my back seat just to make sure. And on the off chance that I find someone else back there when I'm in a dark mood, instead of freaking out and driving to the nearest police station, I might just ask him if he wants some tea and just help him on his way. Thank you. That is there. Dale, you're muted. Are you muted?
I don't know. I'm just enjoying myself so much. It's just because
Go ahead.
while when you would give us these little ditties while you were driving, I could, because I know your personality and your cadence and your sense of timing and humor. It's just visualizing that moment as it happens that I just love reliving over and over and over again. Like at first I was like, wait a minute, I've heard this story before. Did they leave a turd of shit there in the back seat? What happened? I'm just, it's like all of these things start going through my head, and your way of just kind of rationalizing it all to keep yourself sane always entertains me. It just entertains me. I love hearing them, and I'm just like, oh my God, can I do justice to his story?
Oh God. Well, thank you as I rushed through that. So thank you.